On the Build Show today, we're talking about the path to become a master builder, and there is no one better to tell you how to do that than my friend Brent Hall. Today's Build Show, becoming a master builder. Let's get going.
Brent Hall Build Show, talking today about the mastery of building, okay? How do you become a master builder? Something I talk about quite a bit, but what does that even mean? We're going to talk about it, how to become a master builder, today on the Build Show. All right, guys, I don't know if you've read the book, The Outliers, okay? That's the book by Malcolm Gladwell, and he talks about, these superstars, these super athletes, super geniuses, and are they outliers, okay? Are they people that are just kind of weird, set apart, wonder creatures that can do things, or is there a secret to their success, okay? What he discovers and what you read in the book, spoiler alert, is that mastery, okay, and becoming this outlier, becoming super successful isn't a matter of having more talent than everybody else. Isn't a matter of being lucky, okay? There is some luck, but mostly it's hard work, okay? Mostly it's hours that you put in. And in fact, he comes up with this concept called, or he relates this concept called the 10,000 hours. I don't know if you've heard about that, but the 10,000 hours is essentially that they did these studies on all these doctors and scientists and super athletes and how many hours that they had actually practiced, okay? How many hours that they'd put in before they were proficient and experts. And the result was roughly 10,000 hours. Now, this video is talking about the mastery of building, right? What are those 10,000 hours for us? There's a famous quote, amateurs talk about strategy, professionals talk about logistics, okay? And it's an army term, it's a military term, and basically what it's talking about is that Napoleon famously, when he went into Russia and to attack Russia, had what was considered maybe the greatest army, and he's considered maybe one of the greatest generals of all times, and that their strategy was great, but they didn't have the logistics to back it up, okay? So they do this vast run into Russia, but they can't feed the troops, they don't have the ammunitions, they don't have the logistics there. Generals and war people since that time have been talking about that it's logistics that wins a war. This talk is really about the logistics of building, okay? What are those things that you need to do in order to become a master? Okay, so I think there's 4 things, right? The first one is, and this may seem silly, but you need to know how to craft, okay? We are practicing an ancient tradition, okay? This tradition of building, this tradition of crafting and building things. And so to think that you can just start building, right, and be a master is, naive, okay? So the reason I think practicing the trade first before you get into building and everything else is better is because how do you really know if your framer is framing fast or not? How do you really know if your trim carpenter is doing good work and if he's competent or not? Unless you've practiced those things, okay, and understand and be able to look at a guy and go, he doesn't have the tools, he doesn't have the ability, there's no way this guy can be good at it. And, this guy is going to be much more professional, right? So that's number 1, need to know how to craft. You got to practice a bunch of different things, right? I started out as a remodeler. Really, I started out as a trim carpenter, okay? And then I got into remodeling. And I remember people used to talk about building houses. Oh my gosh, if you're a builder, building's easy, okay? Once you've remodeled a house, once you've remodeled a historic house. And so practicing for me meant crafting for a while, meant remodeling, okay? Meant building nice houses, right? And now in my career, I'm more in talking about the design of things than I am about the crafting because I've been there. For you, it means don't just stay in one lane, right? I want you to practice, okay? If you're gonna master this skill, you need to master a number of different trades. And so practice in a number of different areas, practice in a number of different abilities and styles, it'll make you better. Number 3, I think you've got to have a good concept of what design is, okay? Now, if you're going to your clients and you're a trim carpenter, you're a remodeler, and you're saying, well, we can do what we did in the last house, or you're going to the client and say, well, if you just show me the picture you want, I can build it, right? I want you to be able to understand design. Now, I look at the past, right? My heroes of building are guys that have built, 200 years ago, and Samuel McIntyre, William Buckland, who were trained and apprenticed in craft, but they also are famous today because they understood design. They understood how to design. Understanding design, the rule of threes, right? Hierarchy, proportion, and scale. What do those mean? How do you do that, right? That is part of the design avenue that you have to have, that I want you to practice in order to become a master builder. And lastly, you need to know how to make money. That may seem silly, right? You got to make money, but a lot of times as craftsmen and builders, we're afraid to charge what we need to charge. We're afraid to really ask for that amount that it's really going to take in order to build that thing that this client wants. And so look, this has really been a tough one for me, and it continues to be a challenge for me as I push the envelope on craft and quality and things like that, and yet still try to charge the client a fair rate and an honest rate, right? And so to grow my company, to support my men, to pay people what they need to get paid, to charge clients a fair rate, I had to understand the business side of things in order to become a master. Another book that actually my daughter turned me on to is a book by George Leonard. It's called Mastery, The Key to Success and Long-Term Fulfillment. And basically what he talks about in there is that you have these people that, they rock it up, they get real excited, and then they practice it for a little while and they fall off, okay? What happens in the reality of mastery is that you rise up and you get excited and you learn a new skill and then you plateau. Okay, and that plateau and working through that plateau ends up after a period of time, you bounce up again. You learn a new skill, you get excited, you learn a new thing, and you plateau again. It's working through those plateaus, guys, right? And it's rising and finding that other level and rising up that over time, okay, makes you a master, right? You're going to learn a lot more in failure than you are in success, okay? So working through those plateaus, okay, working through those hard times, working through those things where you don't see much changing, right, is the secret of mastery. The challenge for us today is in America, I wrote my book, How to Build a Timeless House in an Instant Age. We really are an instant age. We celebrate, the instant success, the overnight success, and yet our trade and our craft is something that takes years and years to master. I was encouraged when a few years ago I read about the Japanese and how they build their business plans. That it isn't a 1, 2, and 3 year thing, it's a 40 and 50 year business plan. Now, when you plan out that far, you're building and introducing a philosophy into your business that, one, I'm in it for the long haul, right? That I've got a lot of time to be able to learn and practice these things, that this path may meander. There's a book called The Long Obedience in a Similar Direction. And that's really what you're trying to practice, right? Is this long obedience in a similar direction. And you're practicing and moving in these things that you're not trying to, hit a revenue goal of 10 million by year 3, right? Because that gets you all focused on revenue. You are practicing a craft, you're taking it one day at a time, and you're moving towards mastery. Now, how long does it take? Well, it's at least 10 years, okay? And I don't think you can practice this business and in 10 years be an expert, okay? I'm in year 27, 28, right? And I'm finally getting it. It's fine to spend 5 or 10 years crafting. No problem, okay? But then I wanted to get you into remodeling and being the general contractor and being the builder, and then practice building new houses, and then practice these other things, right? So that you can become a master builder.
All right, guys, Brent is the ideal of a master builder. In fact, he even has a multi-day course that he's designed called Master Builder. Brent is amazing. If you want to see his content, you can get over to thebuildshow.com. That's our Build Show Network website. You can see all of Brent's content. He is an amazing builder. You should be following him on Instagram, Hall Homes, Hall Millwork. Guys, with that being said, hit that subscribe button below. We've got new content here every Tuesday and every Friday. Follow us on Facebook or Instagram. Otherwise, we'll see you next time on The Build Show.